birthday to you. Happy birthday.
This is Denise. Her son, James Bulger, should be celebrating his 18th birthday this year. For the first time in 15 years, Denise wants to talk about life after her son's murder and her plans to build a school for bullied children as a lasting memorial to him.
I think James has wanted me to do this. You know, his life was taken before he even started school. So, you know, just having his name over a school, it's going to be really nice to see.
Frozen in time, the moment in 1993 that James was abducted. The crime was unprecedented and all the more horrific because his killers were children themselves. On Friday, February the 12th, 1993, Denise took James on a shopping trip to the Strand Centre in Bootle, Merseyside. At 3:30 p.m, they went into a butcher's shop. While Denise was paying, James wandered outside. It was only a few seconds before Denise noticed, but it was too late. James was gone. When security staff couldn't find him, they contacted the police. Mandy Waller, a young WPC, was sent to the shopping centre. The call would change her life.
I was the first on the scene and the first to speak to Denise about James going missing. It was quite hard to get any details off her because she was so upset about him and sort of saying that, you know, he wouldn't have wandered off, he wouldn't have done this. He'd already been missing more or less half an hour, and we conducted a search of the Strand ourselves as well.
It wasn't long before local journalists became aware of the disappearance.
Just on my routine police calls, I heard that a little boy had gone missing from the Strand shopping centre in Bootle. And I heard that probably about 5 o'clock, maybe slightly after. And it was a bit of a toss-up, really, whether it would even make a story at that point. Because it was the sort of thing you normally expect it to be resolved quite happily within an hour or two.
I think initially, like any parent, you thought, well, he's probably gone somewhere inside the store. He may have gone inside a cupboard or under a counter, or got somewhere where he couldn't, get out of. That was the initial thought.
But those early hopes faded. At 5:30 p.m, the Strand closed and James was still missing. Police then launched a major search operation across Bootle.
We had patrol cars on the street with loudspeakers. Members of the family had come down and really widening the search. But by the time it came to bedtime on the Friday night and there was no sign of him, that's when then the really serious concerns started to come in.
At the shopping centre, police and security guards began searching through the day's CCTV recordings.
There are 16 cameras placed throughout the precinct, and it's on a time-lapse system. So you get so many seconds on one camera, so many seconds on another. So the police officers then, we had a point of starting, which was outside the butcher's shop. We knew the time, so they had to sit there and go through the tapes over that period of time.
In the middle of the night, officers identified the first frame of James leaving the butcher's at 3:39 p.m. They would soon discover a frame-by-frame account of the crucial minutes following his disappearance. At 3:40 p.m, Denise was pictured on the ground floor, leaving the shop in panic. While she searched downstairs, James was seen on the top floor of the precinct 1 minute later. He appeared to be following two boys. The next frame police found would become the most haunting image of the case.
Those grainy images where you had the two boys walking out of the precinct, one boy holding James's hand.
This was at 3:42 p.m. 1 minute later, James was with the two boys walking out of the precinct and towards the Leeds-Liverpool canal. It was just 4 minutes since he'd strayed from his mother's side.
We were just looking for a missing boy, when in actual fact it was an abduction.
By now, James had been missing for more than 19 hours. Police organised a news conference.
Just buying meat out the butcher's. Turned away from him for a minute and then I looked down again. He's gone. If you've got me baby, just bring him back.
By this time, it was pretty clear that something very serious was wrong because the police had declared it a major incident in which they're trying to enlist the public's help. Then when they showed the video footage, that's when you really begin to think that this is something very much out of the ordinary. I don't think anyone quite imagined the significance that those images was going to take on as events transpired.
Good afternoon. Police searching for a missing 2-year-old boy on Merseyside believe he may have been abducted. He was filmed by security cameras leaving the centre with 2 teenage boys.
Close-ups of the youths don't reveal their identity, but police believe they're both white and in their early teens.
We thought we were looking for boys about 13 years of age because it was very, very difficult to judge their height by anything in the precinct on the early pictures. And we all felt that they were probably in that age bracket.
The police appealed for the boys to come forward, and the search for James continued.
Police activity today has centred on the nearby Leeds-Liverpool canal. Witnesses said they'd seen a boy like James on the towpath with a group of other youngsters.
We had specialist search teams out who were doing the canal, for example, who were doing the railway lines, all the wasteland. It was a massive operation on searching.
It's now well over 30 hours since James went missing from this shopping centre. The already serious concerns for his safety have been further heightened as he faces his second night away from his parents.
I was assigned to stay with Denise, and there's only so many times you can say, it's going to be all right, or everything's going to be fine, and because by that time you're thinking, well, it's not.
If you've got me baby, just bring him back.
I don't think it takes much stretch of the imagination to understand how distressed she was. Denise had a daughter a short while before that was stillborn, and so she was probably more protective over James than most parents are over their children.
Throughout Saturday night and into Sunday, more than 100 officers were looking for James, and every member of his family joined in the search.
They had gone through incredible efforts. If sheer will and sheer love for their son could have brought him back, then they'd have had him back safe, but unfortunately that wasn't going to happen.
On Valentine's Day 1993, the body of a toddler was found on a railway track in Liverpool's Walton district.
About lunchtime, police officers from Walton Lane Police Station rang up and said, there's some young boys come running in here and it looks as if the body's on the railway line at the back of the police station.
The railway line was nearly 3 miles away from the Strand, the Bootle shopping centre, where 2-year-old James Bulger had become separated from his mother Denise 2 days earlier. CCTV had shown 2 boys leading him outside. Although the body hadn't been formally identified, Denise was told to expect the worst.
She just went spark out for a while. He told her, she screamed, and then it was like shh. And she was just not unconscious, but sort of like completely out of it.
Detective Sergeant Phil Roberts was on duty at Bootle Police Station that day.
I heard this almighty screech, which came from like the bottom of the gut, and even tears came to my eyes.
James's body was identified by one of his uncles. He'd been found only 100 yards away from Walton Lane Police Station. At first, it seemed he'd been hit by a train.
Myself and a couple of others immediately went up there, and we actually saw what had actually happened to James.
The nature of James's injuries immediately ruled out the possibility of an accident.
We know it is a murder inquiry. It's not as we'd first hoped. We were going to find James and return him to his parents. It is horrific what has taken place, and there must somewhere be somebody who will know the identity of the two boys who were seen with James.
At that point, obviously, there's that awful realisation that everyone's worst fears had come to fruition. And coupled with that, was the puzzlement of, well, what were those two boys to do with it? How were they involved in it?
In the days after James was found, Denise stayed with her mother, Eileen.
At first, we couldn't even go in the same room. She didn't know what to say to me and I didn't know what to say to her. So it was like two mothers in the same, going through the same pain. It wasn't just me going through it, she was going through it as well. I think I just took each day as it come and took anything that was thrown at me. Basically, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what kinds of future I was going to have, if there was going to be one, and I just didn't know. I was basically in the dark.
At Bootle Police Station, the investigating team was in shock.
It was a horrendous murder. I know what happened, and sometimes it's best not to know what exactly happened.
After James's body had been found, because I could see the effect it was having on the staff, I made my mind up I wasn't going to tell them all the details of what happened to James.
The coroner, Roy Barter, said it was the most dreadful and shocking case he'd dealt with in 25 years.
In Liverpool, a horrified community began to grieve.
A gesture of the city's outrage, which started as a handful of flowers, has now become a symbolic memorial. Among the many messages, one which sums up the question on most minds here: why?
But Denise was unaware of the attention surrounding her son's death.
She sort of divorced herself from the whole thing for a while. She was always sort of talking about James and saying, you know, what he was like at house, sort of what sort of character he was and everything.
He was just really cheeky. I mean, he had a very good sense of humour, a little character, always laughing. He was the most lovable, happy-going kid. He used to try and dance like Michael Jackson, which was very funny, watching him. A lot of people ask me what that is around his mouth. A lot of people think it's milk. It's not, it's yogurt. And I remember that day like it was yesterday. We were actually on holiday in Wales. We went away for a week with him. And he just said to yogurt when that picture was taken. I keep a lot of pictures private. I don't like anyone seeing them. I actually keep them in the loft with all his clothes and everything, because obviously I don't like looking at them all the time. But what I've got in mind, that'll always stay with me. That's something that no one can take away from me, is the memories that I've got of him. To a lot of people, he's just a picture. Well, not to me, he's not.
Every parent in the country can only feel the deepest shock at the abduction from a shopping centre and subsequent killing of James Bulger.
Mothers of young children have become extra vigilant. There's a growing demand for these children's harnesses.
Everybody was afraid, all parents were afraid that their child was going to be abducted.
For goodness sake, keep tight hold of your children. Poor James only went missing from his mother for a matter of seconds, and he'd gone and disappeared.
The only lead the police had was the grainy CCTV footage of James's abduction.
As I've stressed, we've got an open mind on these two boys. All we know for certain is they were with James.
Detectives are desperate to speak to the two youths who were seen by the video cameras. They say it may have been a prank that went tragically wrong.
None of us could have believed initially that any young person could have done to James what had happened.
The amount of information that came in was unbelievable. Any other murder case, you'd have one person just to look at information, but we were having 6 or 7.
More than 20 boys aged between 10 and